Imagine living a life where every desire is fulfilled, every goal achieved, and every wish granted. It sounds perfect, doesn't it? But what if even in such a life, suffering exists? This paradox lies at the heart of the Buddhist concept of dukkha. Today, we will explore the nature of suffering in Buddhism, how it is taught, and how understanding it can lead to a more meaningful and enlightened life. Over 2,500 years ago, Prince Siddhartha Gautama, sheltered from the harsh realities of the world, was confronted with the truth. His first teaching, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, introduced the Four Noble Truths, with the first being the truth of dukkha, the pervasive nature of suffering. Dukkha is often translated as suffering, but it encompasses a broader spectrum of unsatisfactoriness, stress and discomfort, pain, loneliness, heartbreaks. It is the inherent dissatisfaction and imperfection in life. Dukkha is categorized into three main types. The first, the suffering of physical and mental pain. Second, the suffering due to change and the transient nature of happiness. And the third, the suffering inherent in the conditioned existence. This understanding of dukkha reveals that suffering is not just the obvious physical or emotional pain, but also the subtle, pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness that accompanies our daily experiences. Dukkha is present in our everyday lives. Recognizing and understanding dukkha helps us accept that suffering is a natural part of life, not something we should avoid at all costs. When we face suffering, instead of asking, "Why am I suffering?" we can remind ourselves, "This is suffering, and it is a part of life. I don't need to react or act on it." This mindset can lead to acceptance as we reduce our resistance and anxiety about life's imperfections. Resilience, as understanding that suffering is temporary, helps us stay calm during tough times. And compassion, as knowing our own suffering, makes us more empathetic towards others. By practicing mindfulness, living ethically, and cultivating compassion, we can change our relationship with suffering and find a deeper sense of well-being. Let us see the story of how the Buddha taught a mother named Kisa Gotami. One day, the Buddha was approached by a grieving mother named Kisa Gotami. Her only son had died, and she was overcome with sorrow. She went to the Buddha, asking him to bring her son back to life. The Buddha told her he would help, but first she must find a mustard seed from a household that had not experienced death. Kisa Gotami went from house to house, but she could not find a single family that had not faced death and loss. Realizing the universal nature of suffering, she returned to the Buddha. The Buddha gently explained that suffering is an inevitable part of life, and that recognizing this truth can lead to wisdom and compassion. This story illustrates the Buddha's teaching that dukkha is a fundamental aspect of human existence, and that acceptance of this truth is the first step towards enlightenment. The Buddha provided profound insights into the nature of dukkha and how to address it. He taught that all conditioned things are impermanent, and when one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. So what if we looked at suffering not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a teacher that guides us towards a deeper understanding of life? The Buddha's insight into dukkha offers us a path not just to escape suffering, but to transform our relationship with it. As we come to an end, I hope you have learned something valuable about dukkha and that it helps you in your journey. Remember the Buddha's words, "I have taught one thing and one thing only, dukkha, and the cessation of dukkha." Reflect on this teaching and let it guide you towards a more compassionate and mindful life.